might be a Viking or a Saxon or a Roman, but tell me, do you like 'em, would you sex 'em, would you bone 'em? Would you go to bed with King Ethelred? Would you bunk William the Conqueror romp in the sheets with Samuel Pepys? Mussolini was a meanie, led a fascist insurrection, but does he make you creamy, does he give you an erection? Would you pork Richard the Duke of York? Does a boner start when you think of Bonaparte? Are you sexually aroused at the thought of Pol Pot? Historical hot or not?
Hello and welcome to Historical Hot or Not, the only history podcast that looks at the life and times of history's most celebrated figures and asks, yes, but would you? It's the pod parchment that puts the Ho in Ho Dynasty, the ass in Aztec, the bone and the pole in Napoleon Bonaparte. I am your co-host Aidan McCaffrey. I am not a historian, and this is...
Catherine Mather, who is also not a historian.
But we are comedians, and we are horny for history. Fact. Kath, your boyfriend cheats on you. Do you empty his belongings onto the lawn, or do you empty his body of life by beheading him for treason?
Is both an option?
Yes.
Then both.
Which order?
Well, he'd need to see his stuff on the lawn, wouldn't he?
Yeah, well, unless that thing's true. You know, they say if you behead someone, your head stays alive and conscious for like 10 seconds. Mm-hmm. But you'd have to time it so well.
Yeah, that'd be really stressful, wouldn't it, actually? You're
literally there at the window with his suitcase with his clothes in, and you're like, go. They chop it off, head rolls, you start emptying so you can see, like, this is what you get when you wrong the math.
What happens if his head rolls and lands the opposite way? All of that work for nothing.
You'd have to have someone on standby to just, like, pop it round. Like, oh, let's get your face in the right way, Steve.
That is a lot of people to ask to be an accessory to murder.
In this circumstance, you are an absolute monarch and you're allowed to get away with this.
Oh, God, I would be, just taking people down left, right and centre.
Historical hot or not?
Do you want to see who I'm setting you up with, Kath?
Yeah, so the premise that we keep forgetting to tell people about the premise of this podcast, we just chat and then we fuck it up real bad, don't we, Aidan?
We do. I mean, this is an arrogance to once saying what the premise is, and then going, they've got it.
Yeah.
Like, just everyone's going to start listening in episode 1. Hopefully we'll be picking people up along the way, and they need to know what's going on.
But also, if you've not listened from the beginning, you can absolutely suck a dick. Stop listening now, get back to the first episode and listen to them all. Commit, I hate you. I don't. Thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate you, Greg.
We need this so badly.
We really do.
Listen to 1, 2, 3, 4, as many as you want. Don't even listen, just download it and give us the hit, honestly. We're happy. Yeah,
just give us a 5-star review, it's fine, don't worry. Yeah. So the premise of the podcast is that I will sometimes bring Aidan historical figures, and he will decide whether he would like to fuck them. And then on the times that I'm not doing that, Aidan will bring me historical figures and I'll decide whether I would fuck them. And we have a fictional dating app. It's called eTrost, which is where we find these people. And if we will fuck them, which sometimes we will, they end up on the Bay Your Tap Latestry.
That was beautiful, Kath. I think you should do the description of the premise in future.
Sure, I will. Can we just copy and paste that into all of the episodes so we don't have to keep doing it?
Yeah, and it won't sound crude at all as the sort of sonic ambient shift. Kath, if you'd like to open your eTrost app and check out the profile picture that I am sending you.
Okay.
Do you want to describe what you're seeing and whether you're on board so far?
I'd say I am. It's not a photograph, it is a drawing, so I imagine he's very old. But he looks quite young. I would say he looks to be in his 30s in this picture. He's got dark curly hair, quite closely cropped. I like that. A widow's peak, as they call it. He looks to be wearing a red smoking jacket, which is not the sign of a classy person. I would say, like, if someone came to a date wearing a smoking jacket, it would be a turn-off.
at the time of this man's life, which was the early 19th century, maybe a smoking jacket was seen as being distinguished. Whereas now, if I showed up to a date in a smoking jacket, I'm just screaming 2 words, Hugh Hefner.
Yeah.
And that doesn't feel classy. Now a smoking jacket suggests I'm surrounded by plastic-titted women. But back in this time, I think it seemed debonair, I guess.
Yeah, and you can tell that he's wealthy because he looks to have 4 pearls and possibly a ruby around his neck, which again, if somebody turned up to spoons in that, I'd be like, well, we're definitely getting robbed on the way home. Why on earth would you do that? But again, at the time, I imagine was good. His collar is open, so it must be like Dress Down Friday or something. But yeah, he's quite hot. So far, I would.
I say a modern day one would scream Hugh Hefner. He's reading this, but we can't see what he's reading. For all we know, he's reading Playboy.
But also, he's holding some papers, like he's just torn pages out of a book. Maybe that's how you read at the time. Once you finish reading the page, you just tear it out. I've done that one.
I want to be the only person to have read Oliver Twist. Tear.
Books.
God.
Books were a single-use item.
There was a big island in the Atlantic called Literature Island. It's just all the torn out bits of books just collecting in one big oceanic heap. So I won't say his full name yet. This is George. He is 36 and he's from London. Okay. And he was born on the 22nd of January 1788 on Hull Street in London, England. His birthplace is now supposedly occupied by a branch of the department store John Lewis.
Oh.
He was born there, and now you can buy overpriced prams there. There's a bit of poetry there, and poetry is about to become very significant in this person's life. His dad seemingly married his mother for her fortune and used that to pay off his debts, and then he left her with an annual income of only £150, which is about 16k per annum now, aka sweet fuck all.
Not enough to live in John Lewis in London.
His dad died when he was a child, and he inherited Newstead Abbey and became, as a child, the 6th Baron Byron of Rochdale. Basically, the plot of Richie Rich is his childhood. He no doubt had a McDonald's and a bowling alley in his lounge, and all the other gaudy shit Macaulay Culkin bought for himself in that film. Baron Byron is the poet, the womanizer. He is Lord Byron. That's who I'm trying to set you up on a date with, Kath.
Goodness me, so he must have been riddled with disease.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
As we'll discover later on when we get into the sort of Lothario aspect of his life, doesn't seem to have suffered from that. So maybe he just was classy with who he picked. Anyway, Byron had a deformed foot. It was probably dysplasia or clubfoot. Don't really know. He had a bit of a hang-up about it. Poor guy.
I'm out.
You are famously anti-disabled. Not just when it comes to dating, but just...
No, just generally.
Poetry. Ridge of Newark printed some of his early work in the... Sorry, I'll start that sentence again. Ridge of Newark printed some of his early work in fugitive pieces when he was only 17. These were recalled and burnt on the advice of his friend Reverend J.T. Betcher on account of its more amorous verses, particularly the poem To Mary. By modern standards, To Mary doesn't seem that bad, but I did read it. It's your heaving bosoms, it's your sins practiced in darkness, it's your second lovers. By modern standards, it's not like blue is the warmest colour. There's no category on YouPorn called rhyming couplets, but this, back then, you definitely would have had to have clicked on Are you sure you're 18 before reading some of this filthy Byron verse.
But then he wouldn't be able to read it because he was only 17.
Well, that's a good point. And as we know, teenagers famously, when it comes to that Are you sure you're 18 button, they're very honest.
Can you imagine how insufferable you would be as a 17-year-old who got your racy poetry published? Oh, God, I bet it was awful.
The thing is, I can sort of relate to this because this is embarrassing.
It almost certainly will be, yeah. Go on.
When I was 16, I wrote some prose called... Actually, I'm going to give you a bit of context before I do it. I hadn't pulled a woman at this point. I hadn't kissed a woman on the lips. Meaningfully, anyway. So what I'm about to say was meant as an ironic joke. I wrote a bit of prose called The Sexual Promiscuity of Aidan McCaffrey. And it was meant like an ironic joke. Because I'd never pulled. And people started handing it around the school. Now, I basically nicked loads of sexual innuendo from Roger's Profanosaurus. It was just stuff like purple-headed womb broom, all those old jokes. And I just circulated around the school and people thought it was hilarious. And I almost got expelled for it because it got back to the headmaster and I got absolutely bollocked. But it made me socially, like, that thing. Like, after that, everyone knew who I was. It was like, oh yeah, Aidan, he wrote that thing. I was in a garage, a petrol station, when I was 21, with my brother, and he had his surname written on the side of his painting and decorating run. And the guy behind the counter went, are you Aidan McCaffrey? And I went, yeah. And he went, you wrote that text, didn't you? And I was like, oh my God, how is this thing still coming back to me? Anyway, I hope no copy of it ever shows up anyway. It's almost certainly trash.
Okay, but if anybody listening has got a copy of it, please send it to me.
I'm pretty sure someone has, but I hope for the life of me they're not listening to this. So I can sort of relate to this. He wrote some racy literature and became a legend. That's what happened to me at St. John Fisher's secondary school. But that's not where he became famous. I'm jumping ahead. First publication. After receiving a negative review for Hours of Idleness, a collection of poems, he wrote English Bards and Scotch Reviews, which, although published anonymously, everyone knew it was him. And then it became like this mark of prestige to be insulted by Byron's pen. Which is quite funny. He basically sort of becomes like the 19th century Jeff Ross, the American king of roast comedy. Everyone wants him to have a go at them.
Yeah.
Do me, Byron. Insult me.
Call me a cunt.
Exactly. Like when you see those videos of people who've gone to Jimmy Carr gigs specifically to heckle him, and specifically so he'll like make some long-winded insult about their mum.
Yeah.
That's the position Byron's in at this point.
He invented it.
I do wonder if they had roasts back then. Like the Theatre Royal roast of William Pitt, something like that would be quite good. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then Byron could be the roast master. I wrote some hypothetical gags he could have delivered against Pitt. William Pitt is so posh, his silver spoons have silver spoons in their mouth. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
You're not impressed at all. I've got one more. And I'm going to say it anyway, despite your disinterestedness.
Okay, go on.
William Pitt is so annoying, King George pretended to be mad just to avoid his calls.
King George was mad, though, wasn't he?
No, that's the joke. He's saying he's just pretending to be mad to avoid Pitt.
Got you. All right, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I get that.
If you think those jokes aren't funny, audience, bear in mind, I did recently do the Bill Murray, the roast battle. And I went out in the first round, which is why those gags weren't very good. Kath there, though. Boom, all the way to the final.
And then went out in the first round of the final.
Yeah, but still. It's just, you did very well, Kath.
Yeah, I was just glad to be there and for it to be over.
I've always thought I'm thick-skinned, but I think I'm not, actually. Because actually, the last couple of times I've done a roast, I've actually come out of it a little bit like, ooh. Once because they picked on something I didn't know about myself. That really stuck in my brain. Which was, they said, Aidan's head's too big for his body. Like he has dwarfism or something. And I never knew that about me. He actually made much worse jokes about me. He literally joked about the suicide of a family member. And that bugged me less than like, what do you mean I've got a big head? Jesus.
Oh, well, I hope you're working through it.
I am working through it. Are you thin-skinned and roast battles, Kath?
No, I don't mind them. I just find it very stressful because you get given maybe a week to write 5 jokes, and typically what one does with a joke is you try it out at places before the big night, but you can't do that with a roast battle.
I couldn't hold up a photo of you. I'm going to make some jokes about this. Catherine Mather's so northern, blah blah blah. They'd just be like, why are you going to town on this poor girl? She's not even here.
What are you doing? So I find that quite stressful, particularly with the roast battle final of that competition, when you had 11 potential opponents that you had to have at least 3 jokes written for, and a week to prepare for that.
I would totally have a nervous breakdown if I did that.
Yeah, I did. So
the other thing that I was thin-skinned about roast battle was I sort of always forget you roast each other.
Yeah.
And then you sort of then get roasted again by the judges.
Mm-hmm.
I'd forgotten about that. And then one of the judges was like really laying into me. And I actually was like, oh, hang on. I had not emotionally prepared for this. And also they're professionals as well. So it really stings.
Yeah, you've got 4 people just slagging you off.
I know.
And you don't really get paid either.
I might give it a rest for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Especially after those William Pitt zingers didn't land a few moments ago. Anyway, from 1809 to 1811, Byron went on the Grand Tour. Now, this is not to be confused with the Top Gear spin-off, the Grand Tour, with Jeremy Clarkson. Byron wasn't recreating battleships using dynamite and old Vauxhall coursers. No. The Oxford Languages describes the Grand Tour as a cultural tour of Europe formally undertaken, especially in the 18th century, by a young man of the upper classes as part of his education. Basically, there's no internet back then.
What?
I know. In 1809, you couldn't send an email.
Fucking hell. So how did you send an email then?
You had to, type up the email on your laptop, print it off, give it to a bird, and then they'd fly off to a fax machine.
Yeah.
And then they'd fax it to Europe or wherever it is you want to send it to.
Oh, that's so long-winded.
The Grand Tour was, because there was no internet, it was your only chance to see lots of art. It was actually your only chance to hear certain music in some ways. Do you know what I mean? Like if you go to Vienna and hear Beethoven or Mozart. It was Mozart that was in Vienna, right? I don't know. We'll get to the Mozart episode later. Yeah. It was your only chance to hear all this stuff. Because the Napoleonic Wars were raging at this time, old Byron had to stick to the Med.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and I have wondered if, a lot of my office colleagues, they always go to the Med on holiday. They're not very imaginative. And I've sometimes wondered, is that why they're going? Do they think that the Napoleonic Wars is still raging?
Yeah.
Are they like, we can't go to Berlin. Napoleon has invaded Prussia again. Kavos it is.
Well, yeah, I guess he'd have had to have got a direct flight there, wouldn't he, to avoid all of the war.
Yeah, exactly. You can't connect via Brussels, not when Bonaparte's on the march. Have you ever been to Kavos?
I haven't, no.
It's the worst place I've ever been in my life. I went on an 1830 holiday when I was 18.
Mm-hmm.
The only aspect of the holiday I enjoyed was playing cards in the afternoon and dicking about with my mates.
Mm-hmm.
When it got to the evening and you are had to, by Kavos law, go out and get smashed.
Yeah.
It was awful. I liked getting smashed, but we went for 2 weeks.
Oh
Absolutely.
My God.
Oh, I know. 2 weeks in Kavos. No culture, no museum. There's no Kavos Historical Museum. And if there is, it would just be bars that had closed down in the 90s. Mm-hmm. That's all it is. It's just a street of nothing. It's just a street of bars, clubs, and meat restaurants. And I was there for 2 goddamn weeks.
Oh my God. Was it like the In-Betweeners movie?
I wish it was. I genuinely think it was worse than that. No one got chased by a poo on a water slide, but only because there was no water slide park there. If there was a water slide park there, I probably would have rated it a bit higher. Anyway, Byron finally became famous after publishing Childe Harold's Pilgrimage in 1812. According to Jerome McGann, a Byron scholar, he was sought after at every society venue, elected to several exclusive clubs, and frequented the most fashionable London drawing rooms. Do you want to hear a bit of Childe Harold's Pilgrimage?
Yeah, let's do it.
So far, you seem on board with Byron.
Yeah.
As a sexual partner, poetry might really seal the deal. Anyway, Childe Harold was he hight, but whence his name and lineage long, it suits me not to say. Suffice it that perchance they were of fame and had been glorious in another day. But one sad lossel soils a name for aye, however mighty in the olden time, nor all that heralds rake from coffin to clay, nor florid prose, nor honeyed lines of rhyme can blazon evil deeds or consecrate a crime.
You know, with olden day poetry...
Black and white poetry, yeah.
Yeah. I understand all of the words individually, but just, it's like, I really try to understand it and engage with it, but it's just like television static. I don't understand what he's saying, I don't understand what he means. I'll be honest, I don't care enough to find out.
I like the idea of you saying all this to Byron. Just as he's just read his most famous work to you, and you're like, it's like static, mate. Absolutely not interested.
I don't care, but you are hot, so, But I also think that if I was to date a poet now, it'd be the same.
I quite like spoken word stuff, but that's almost closer to rap. Like Kate Tempest or Scroobius Pip. I guess they're the... God, that sounds like such a cliche. Did you know Eminem? He's kind of like the modern day Wordsworth. But there is a sort of weird truth in that. Where if it's just like a little poem, it just feels like You haven't tried, mate. It's just a little 4-line poem. Well, I was going to read lots of poems to you, but you clearly got absolutely no interest.
No, it's fine. You can do. I'm just saying I won't understand. If you could translate it afterwards.
Oh, well, that last one, it's about someone who's actually born into quite a posh family, a family that historically were quite well-to-do, hence whence his name and lineage long, and all that kind of stuff. But one sad lossel, someone of ill repute, that one person has soiled the entire name forever.
Oh, man.
So a bit like if you, Matha, I don't know, graffitied the lion in Trafalgar Square, and then the Matha name is soiled for all time. That's basically what it's saying.
I love how posh people are like, well, I come from a strong, long lineage, as though we didn't have family. Like, oh, I just appeared here. My family does not go way back. But
like, they just think that poor people are sort of pulled out of the soil, like those orcs in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
What I like about the next poem is he clearly had a goth phase, because he has a poem that's just called Darkness. I swear when I was 17, I wrote a poem that was just called Darkness.
Oh, God, I think I did as well.
Yeah, and as a result, I think we'll both relate to this. I had a dream which was not all a dream. The bright sun was extinguished, and the stars did wander darkling in the eternal space, rayless and pathless, and the icy earth swung blind and blackening in the moonless air. Morn came and went, and came, but brought no day. It's so hard to imagine him writing that in his lush smoking jacket. I imagine him writing that with black eyeliner, panda makeup, one of those studded collars, and a My Chemical Romance t-shirt.
Yeah, from his description, I feel like I understand that one a bit better. And it sounds like he's just closed his eyes and forgotten. Where's morning?
Like a baby that's got no object permanence. Like, where's everything gone? I've just turned the light off on it. It's okay. Mummy's still here. Don't worry about it.
We closed the curtains and you didn't leave the room. That's what has happened, Byron.
Maybe he wrote that when he was 3 months old. Like, he was full command of the English language, but incapable of figuring out what the hell was going on when the candles were extinguished. I'll read one more poem. This is called Beppo. 'Tis known, at least it should be, that throughout all countries of the Catholic persuasion, some weeks before Shrove Tuesday comes about, the people take their fill of recreation, and by repentance, ere they grow devout, however high their rank or low their station, with fiddling, feasting, dancing, drinking, masking, and other things which may be had for asking.
Okay, so is he saying that the Catholics before Lent go fucking wild and then afterwards as well?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
He's just saying they're all hypocrites. They're all fucking about.
Mm-hmm.
They're not true to their word.
I like how he just put a list in there. Didn't try and make it rhyme.
I mean, I may have made it sound more like a list with my intonation. But I know what you mean. It's like halfway through, he stops being Byron and he becomes, Billy Joel doing Leaving That Fire or something. I said, I'm just going to do a list. Can't be bothered to write actual lyrics. He's famous. His wife coined the term Byromania to refer to the commotion that had surrounded him. While Byron first welcomed fame, he later turned away from it, going into voluntary exile in Britain. Bit like Zac Efron moving to Australia.
Yeah.
Right? In fact, did he move to Byron Bay? That's weird. It all comes full circle.
So he had a wife and was fucking around?
Well, let's get into this.
Okay.
Let's get into this. I was actually going to do this episode on Giacomo Casanova. That was the first person I was going to do was. And I did quite about an hour's work on writing like the script and stuff for it.
Yeah.
And then I hit a really horrible rape allegation.
Oh, no.
It just took all the air out. Like, I was a bit like, there's no way Kath's going to look past that. She's not going to be like, well, put aside when you rape someone with a broom and hey, I think...
God.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's really grim.
It's just a misunderstanding, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It's just like... The broom says one thing, I say another. It was an allegation, we should say. But either way, I think it would be difficult to get past in a would you situation.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, I was looking at the list of Lotharios on Wikipedia. And this is the list of Lotharios that Wiki uses as examples. Okay. Tell me if you think any one of these is an odd one out.
Right.
Giacomo Casanova, Don Juan, Russell Brand.
Okay, I can see it.
Lord Byron.
Yeah.
George Best, Terry Scott, and Charlie Harper.
Well, I don't know who the last ones are.
Charlie Harper, who is on a list with Casanova, Don Juan, Lord Byron. Charlie Harper is Charlie Sheen's character in 2.5 Men.
See, I never watched that.
Neither did I. But I was just like, why is he on this list? That would be like if on a list of famous genocides it included Thanos clicking half the universe out of existence.
The first image that comes up, he's wearing like an old man shirt.
Charlie Harper?
Yeah.
Is he wearing a bowling shirt? Because my brother used to watch it, and from what I remember, he was very into bowling shirts. But I think that's the thing, because he is a Lothario, it doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter what he wears. It's just like, women want him, apparently. But the fact is, he is fictional. Mind you, I think Don Juan's also fictional. One day, they won't know who Don Juan is, and he'll just be displaced in culture by Charlie Harper.
Oh, that's a shame.
Byron is a Lothario. He has an affair with Lady Caroline Lamb, who called him mad, bad, and dangerous to know, which is quite funny. Mad, Bad and Dangerous to Know sounds like the DVD title of an African-American comedian in the 90s, I think. Do you know what I mean? Chris Rock, Mad, Bad and Dangerous to Know. I'm sure Byron had a good hour on how white people walk funny, I reckon. He was rumoured to be romantically involved. This is Byron, not Chris Rock. He was rumoured to be romantically involved with his half-sister Augusta Leigh. And then he married Annabella Milbank, an English mathematician, and had a baby, Ada. While all this was happening, he was having ongoing sexual escapades with an actress called Charlotte Mardin. Eventually, Annabella left him as she considered him insane. Amid all this controversy that was surrounding, especially to do with the half-sister thing, it's bad, apparently.
I remember reading about there's like this, I think it was in China, and what families would do, because they were quite poor farming communities, is you'd be like, my daughter's going to marry your son, but they were infants. It was a time where people didn't marry for love. It was because, you just needed people to form unions to run the farm so you could eat and not die. So that's fair enough. So you'd be like, my daughter's going to marry your son, so I'll send my daughter to just grow up with your family, because then you look after her, you can shape her into the woman that you need, she'll learn how to run your farm, and they can really get to know one another. And what happened was people they weren't attracted to each other because they grew up as siblings as opposed to lovers. I think the issue there is they didn't grow up together, and you just meet this hot guy and it's like, oh, BT dubs, it's your half brother, and you're like, yeah, I'd still fuck him though. We've only just met. Or the difference of like growing up together and playing together.
That's what happened. So when they met, he was like smoking. Interesting bit of psychology there. So the farm thing is interesting, because I always just thought of like political unions as being like, we need to marry you into the Spanish royal family so England can fend off France. But you're saying it was even more local on that. You could just be like, we've got a dairy farm, they've got a wheat farm, put them together, we can make cheese sandwiches.
Yeah. I know people who've got married for less than a cheese sandwich.
You mean like cheese sandwiches, but the cheese slices are those plastic ones, the slices that you get. Oh god.
Where they're named as like calcium squares, because they're legally not allowed to call it cheese.
Byron left England because of the controversy. He headed to Switzerland, where you guessed it, he continued to crush puss, and in some cases also cock, because it turned out he was bisexual. I don't think there's any debate on this, really. Obviously, he couldn't be out at the time, but he had letters to male lovers where the shared code for a homosexual experience was established. So he wrote to Hobhouse, one of his male acquaintances, I am tired of PL and opt-Cs, the last thing I could be tired of. And that's an abbreviation of coitum plenum et optabilem, which means complete intercourse to one's heart's desire. And it's from Petronius's Satyricon, which does contain homosexual relationships. He had fixations with young boys, like 15-year-olds, that he appeared not to have acted on. He just seemed to give, he'd get quite into some, Greek page or whatever, and they just, leave him 7 grand in his will. I couldn't find any evidence that he'd actually banged any of them.
Well, that's okay then. He was just into twinks.
It's okay to be a paedophile as long as you don't act on it. That's what I've always said. Byron eventually settled at the Villa Diodati by Lake Geneva, where he befriends the poet Percy Shelley and his wife Mary Godwin, who would become...
Mary Shelley, of Frankenstein fame.
Exactly. Byron banged Mary's sister, obviously. During a period of bad weather that forced them all indoors, Shelley would write Frankenstein. Byron's personal physician wrote The Vampire, a progenitor of the vampire genre, and Byron wrote part of what would become Mazeppa. So basically, This is a lock-in, but it's highly productive. Not just getting smashed and playing Cards Against Humanity. They're all writing like powerful literature that will be remembered for centuries. I'm pretty sure if we just got locked in to a house for 3 days, we just watched like Game of Thrones the whole time and hope the rain cleared up by season 6. Byron then went to Venice and banged Mariana Sagatti and then Margherita Cogni, both married, FYI.
Of course.
Around this time, he wrote his version of Don Juan, in which Don is not a womanizer, but a man easily seduced by women. Do you reckon that's how he saw himself?
Probably.
I'm not a fuckboy, I'm a fucked boy. There's a big difference.
Is that one of his poems?
Yeah, it's just a coincidence that I keep having sex with hundreds of women. Around this time, he met the 18-year-old Countess Guccioli and asked her to elope with him, even though she was
18?
married.
Okay, but so was he, to be fair.
That is true, actually, yeah. They're both being dicks in this situation. Shelley visited them around this time and described his house thusly: Lord B's establishment consists, besides servants, of 10 horses, 8 enormous dogs, 3 monkeys, 5 cats, an eagle, a crow, a falcon, and all these, except the horses, walk around the house, which every now and then resounds with their unarbitrated quarrels, as if they were masters of it. But I've presented you 2 potential historical suitors, Kat. One was Tom Beckett, and he had a zoo too. Do you remember?
Yeah.
This is a weird coincidence that every guy I present to you is just like got London Zoo in behind him.
His house must have fucking stank.
It must have stank, and it must have looked like one of those paintings you get in pubs where like dogs are playing pool, but it's just like a monkey, a cat, an eagle, just all knocking the old ivory spheres around.
And also, right, if you've got 8 dogs, that I'm assuming that he was not caring for them with the quantity of animals that he had, not giving them his full attention, they would form a pack. So he's not the leader of that pack anymore. So they do what the leader of the dog leader says.
No, but that's what Shelley said. He said as if they were masters of the house.
So then if they just decide, actually, no, we want this house for ourselves, they could just go on a killing spree and there is nothing that you could do. Right?
I think what you were saying is meant to shock me, but as a cat owner, I've seen some blood spilled. Do you know what I mean? It's not uncommon to come home to a dead mouse or a dead bird in your kitchen. You're saying it's that times 10. It's like the Noah's Ark thing. How come all the animals don't slaughter each other en route to the mountain?
I would be dragging a wardrobe in front of my bedroom door if I had to spend a night sleeping there.
Does this mean you're veering towards a no on old Byron? And also, I should say, he said he visited his house. Apparently, he had lots of animals in all of his houses across Europe.
Oh, God.
So don't think that you can go, I'll bang you, Byron, but can we please go to your Venice shack? Because I know that there is not apes in there. That's not going to cut it, because it's going to be like, there's going to be some weird shit in that house as well.
I guess we could always just go back to mine.
I swear you've got 3 giraffes in your house, though. Have I made that up?
I have, in my rental property.
Oh, right, okay. In 1823, Byron goes to Greece to help the Greek independence movement, leaving his partner, who had left her husband, for him.
Oh, God.
There's a part of me that doesn't have that much sympathy. It's like, you know when couples get together through adultery, and that's how it ends as well. I always just think, live by the sword, die by the sword.
I don't know who it is that said it. It might have been Maya Angelou. When somebody shows you who they are, believe them.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's not a con. Byron helped the Greek independence movement largely with financial power. He sold his estate, Rochdale Manor, and that raised 11 grand. This led Byron to estimate he had about 20 grand, and he planned to spend it all on the Greek cause. Byron wrote to his business agent in England, "I should not like to give the Greeks but half a helping hand," saying he would have wanted to spend his entire fortune on Greek freedom. Around this time, Byron adopts a 9-year-old Turkish Muslim girl called Hato, whose parents had been killed by the Greeks. Now, when I read that, knowing he was Lothario, I thought, I don't like where this is going.
Yeah.
Because history is very loose, shall we say, on the old age of consent.
Yeah.
But he ultimately ended up sending her to safety in Catalonia, knowing well that religious hatred between the Orthodox Greeks and Muslim Turks was running high, and that any Muslim in Greece, even a child, was in serious danger. That is hot, right?
So he just saved a kid.
And because she was Muslim and he knew there was like religious strife going on, he was like, I can't keep her here. I've got to send her to an island to be safe.
Ah, well, that's nice.
If I was on the dating scene now, I would put that on my Tinder bio. Aidan, 37, saved a Muslim child from racial tyranny by sending her on a package holiday to Greece with Jet2. I would totally do that.
But did he send her alone, or were the people meeting her there? Because sending a 9-year-old away...
Get on this boat, you'll be fine.
Good luck.
Second island on the left, Kefalonia.
Do you speak the language? No? Okay, you'll learn. You're young.
Watch out for the jellyfish and you'll be absolutely fine. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and assumed he sent her to live with someone.
Yeah, I hope so.
Otherwise, someone's going to dig up a small skeleton on the island of Kefalonia. Another thing that he did that I quite liked was he was a lord in the House of Lords. And he made an impassioned speech before them in support of Catholic emancipation. Byron expressed opposition to the established religion because it was unfair to people of other faiths. That's quite cool, isn't it? Always sticking out for the little guy or the little girl. There was the alleged attraction to boys, but he just seemed to be quite infatuated with them and just gave them money. So
I mean, that's...
I'm not going to hold that.
No, that's nice that he took care of people as well, because I guess at the time, if you got sort of outed, properly, I know there are rumours, but that could be quite damaging. So at least if you got some money, you're not completely fucked, right?
Although, if you had, like, say, a 15-year-old sister and I just gave her 7k, you would be like, I don't trust Aidan anymore. That's a bit odd.
What happened there?
Anyway.
Nothing.
Yeah, exactly. He was also allegedly the victim of sexual abuse. This is Byron himself. A suitor of his mother, Lord Grey de Ruthin, made sexual advances on him. He had a complicated relationship with his mother, who he called a fat drunk.
Wow.
I think he was quite young when he said that. And she called him a lame brat because of his deformed foot.
Wow.
So his complicated relationship with women could be down to the fact that he was abused as a child and had a weird relationship with his mum and had an absent father. So he had no real strong male role model. So just started fucking about for his whole life.
Yeah, a bit needy. Just needs to be liked. Thinks that sex is love.
He was a strong advocate of social reform. He received particular praise as one of the few parliamentary defenders of the Luddites. People wanted to give them the death penalty for breaking frames in Nottinghamshire. He did a speech before the House of Lords in 1812. It was loaded with sarcastic references to the benefits of automation, which he saw as producing inferior material as well as putting people out of work. That's quite cool. I mean, I don't like Luddites. I just think, get with the times. Have they seen what iPhones can do these days? They would change their tune. Again, he's sort of defending the little guy, and I quite like that.
Yeah, I guess he would be the kind of person who would queue to use the cigarette counter in Tesco's when there's a load of empty self-service machines.
Byron was a bitter opponent of Lord Elgin's removal of the Parthenon marbles from the Athens and reacted with fury when Elgin's agent gave him a tour of the Parthenon, during which he saw spaces left by the missing friezes and metotes.
I did see them in the British Museum when I first came down to London. I, and this might be a controversial opinion, think that they would look better not smashed to pieces and brought here.
It'd be like if, say, you stole the Mona Lisa and then really scratched it up on the way. Like, you didn't put it in a decent case, just like bang it, which I would, I'm clumsy, just banging it into doors, banging it into the corners of tables, and then just like hang it up and go, isn't it beautiful? And it's like, what is it? The Mona Lisa. And I'm like, is it? Is it really? Oh yeah, I suppose if I ignore all the tears.
Yeah, if you squint and turn your head.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
I'll just show you a photo of it on the phone, actually. That's the Mona Lisa. Then Byron died.
What?
He was planning to attack Lepanto as part of the Greek independence war, and he got cold and died.
Oh.
Shock twist. 1824, age 36. He's done for.
36? God, can you imagine being dead a year?
Yeah. I'd be getting heckled less, but I'd also be dead, so it's not a good trade-off.
I think, when people were dying so young of colds and just stuff that you wouldn't even think of now.
Yeah.
I just think no wonder everyone were fucking around. If I was in old age now, I would live, and I knew that, I'd live my life so differently. Because you just think that you've got time, but if you knew that you've got no time at all, and life is brutal.
But that's only true of Byron, because actually he was seen as being controversial for his, extramarital stuff. So, but I do know what you mean, yeah, you would be right to think, I'll live my life.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, it's not like I'm thinking, I'm living till I'm 80, I'll bang an Italian countess in my 60s. I'm not thinking that. I'm being a faithful man.
And that's the other thing as well. I feel like with the wealthy people, they would just fuck around all the time, wouldn't they? You know, so you read the history books and it's like the ladies would be ruined. So I was reading a book about like Victorian women. People would rape them, which isn't on them, that's not their fault. But you'd be like a fallen woman then.
Yeah, it's grim, isn't it?
Yeah, and you get punished for that. Whereas he goes on to do whatever. It's ruinous. Whereas you look at the wealthy people and they're just... Everyone's like, ugh, what's he bloody like, eh? Ugh.
That scamp doing his rapes. Rubbing his hair with your hand like, yeah, run along to your bedroom, you little cheeky monkey.
I guess the double standard of society, it surprises me. No, it doesn't.
Whereas these days, all rapists are successfully prosecuted. So,
yeah, thank God we got that sorted out.
Exactly. I will say he's revered in Greece.
Yeah, I'll bet.
It's arguable that he didn't really ultimately help unify all the factions of the pro-independence Greek forces. But the fact that he was at least trying, giving him money and stuff, they love him. There's statues of him there and everything. The legacy of Lord Byron. Tom Bing, the founder of Byron Burgers, said, "It's cool to name a burger joint after a bisexual romantic poet. It's quirky. And although we didn't actually name it after him, there's no harm in letting people think we did." I love that. It's like, it is cool to name your burger joint after a bisexual, but we didn't do that. And then he adds, "You can also use it to make loads of jokes like, buy one, get one free." I'm not sure if I like Tom Bing. I think he's odd.
Yeah, I don't like him either.
They are soon opening some sister branches. They're opening Wordsworth Wasabi, Chaucer's Chips, and Milton's Mac and Cheese. So,
lovely.
Something to look forward to. Shelley also described Byron as polite and cordial, full of social clarity and the most perfect good humour, never diverging into ungraceful merriment and yet keeping up the spirit of liveliness throughout the evening.
No.
So, a good laugh is what he's saying.
Historical hot or not?
Kath, would you go for a date at Byron Burger with Byron and then bang Byron?
Yeah.
Yay! He's on the Bayo Tap, that's history.
He is. I wouldn't want him as a husband.
It's like shag, marry, avoid. You're not marrying him.
No.
But you're also not avoiding him.
He seems troubled, but he seems troubled in a way that he probably won't make it your problem.
Because he'd leave you once he'd banged you.
Exactly, yeah.
And you're perfectly okay with that.
Yeah,
I don't want a project, but I do want some in me now.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to have the awkward conversation. Will we see each other again? No, obviously we won't.
Because halfway through you saying that sentence, the door is slamming shut.
He's already gone.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you did get hung up on him, he was 36 when he died. I'm sure you've had those breakups where you're like, you know what, this would be easier if he was dead, because he wouldn't keep popping up on my Facebook timeline.
Yeah, I know. My first girlfriend did die trying to start a war in Greece.
God, I'm so sorry.
I very much bit the bullet there.
Yeah. That's sometimes easier to get over, isn't it?
Yes.
Than, just, they just didn't like me. It was my looks and personality that were at fault.
You would rather they cease to be than it potentially be anything to do with you.
Yeah, exactly. That is exactly what I'm saying.
I've never agreed more with anything you've said, Kath, with that statement.
Yeah, and also you might get left a few thou.
Well, are you a 15-year-old boy, Kath?
That could be.
If you cut your hair short enough, you could look like one, and then he'd be well into you. That's my advice if you want to get Byron into bed. Bit of a cavalier attitude to marriage and stuff like that, but at the same time, it's kind of forgivable because you clearly didn't have the best childhood. Absent father, absent through death. You don't get much more absent than dying. I've said that. Tough relationship with the mum, sexually abused. If all you do is shag her out a bit, that's fine. But he wrote some great poems. He went to Greece and tried and help them fight for independence. I'm kind of not surprised you said yes. I had a feeling this guy seemed like a good egg.
And I also kind of admire people who, at a time where it is still difficult to be anywhere on the sort of queer spectrum, it's difficult, but at a time when it was not allowed at all, I do admire people who are like, no, you know what, I am going to still be who I am.
Absolutely.
And not just choose the option of hiding it and being forever unhappy.
It's so inherently unaccepted in society that I wouldn't, people don't even talk about it. So you're not even allowed to talk about it. And I wonder if that in a perverse way makes it almost easier to get away with. It's not like you're in some halfway house where, you you could voice it. Some people might support you, but then you could get thrown in prison. It's just like no one's talking about it at all. It's not an option. I'm not saying that's a good thing necessarily, but you do have these people like him. And Frederick was great. I found out recently he was gay and fairly open with it.
Oh, good for him.
In sort of coded language, but he was very like, don't like women, prefer men. And then he just have houses full of men that women couldn't go to, and everyone just sort of knew that's what he was into. That's it for Historical Hot or Not. That's the second person on the Bayeux Tapestry, which is Jane Full. We got her on last week, didn't we, Kath?
We did.
And now Lord Byron is on the Bayeux Tapestry. Hope you enjoyed it. The usual spiel. Tell your friends. Write a review on... If you just do one of these things, we'd be happy, I reckon.
Yeah.
You know, review and 5-star review on your pod app of choice is probably the number one thing. Mm-hmm. But even just telling your friends, if you know people who are either history nerds or horny or both, tell them about Historical Hot or Not. We'd love to have more people listening.
Yes. Take care. Stay horny. And remember...
It's not what's on the outside, it's what's on the inside of the coffin that counts. Stay hard and stay wet.
You have been listening to Historical Hot or Not. If you'd like to contribute, we would fucking love that. So you can find us. We're at Ko-fi. Buy us a coffee. Don't send it to us personally. It'll be cold by then. But it's ko-fi.com/hotnotpod. Send us some coffee. Not real coffee. Send us the money for coffee. Episodes written by Aidan McCaffrey and Catherine Mather. Our wonderful logo is by Richard Todd, and all music by David Eagle.